Welcome back everyone to Mona's Take. I am your host Mona Rose, and we are here to talk about everything reality TV. Tonight's episode is going to be on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, season 14. Reunion night, first night. We're going to get into Joe storming off stage. Andy Cohen seems to be tired of Teresa's crap and calling her on it. Dolores and Jennifer are going at it. And we'll get into all of that in just a minute. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything I've got coming up. People are acting on a whole nother level on that. Can't wait to see that karma train coming through. Choo-choo. Mood of the day. Really? You gotta give us more credit than that. Some people, buckle up, buttercup. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Alright, let's get right into it. Last night's reunion did not disappoint. I'm ready to see some more. Jennifer and Dolores, I really can't figure out what happened to that relationship. But at the moment, they seem like they hate each other. Dolores says that they'll never be friends again. Jennifer said they weren't friends to begin with. That Dolores wasn't a good friend. They go back and forth. I think a lot of it has to do with when Jennifer and Margaret sat down and talked about why Margaret said what she said about the affair. And I think Dolores understood it a little bit more because Jennifer had been coming for her for 4 years. She talked about her cheating. She talked about her mother's cheating. She talked about how she understood why Margaret was the way she was because of her mother. And she just had some very, very negative things. And I think that she pushed Margaret and pushed Margaret and pushed Margaret. Do I think that Margaret knew that it would come out because of her saying that? I don't really think that she meant to hurt Jennifer to the core. I don't think she thought it would hurt Jennifer to the core. Margaret's made remarks about Bill sleeping in the pool house before and things of that nature. But this time, I think she caught Jennifer off guard and it pissed Jennifer off, and she flippantly said it wasn't a secretary, it was a sales rep. If you're going to tell it right. Which I think shocked Margaret and everybody else because they thought that Jennifer would just blow it off like she always had in the past. So I think that's where Dolores and Jennifer's relationship turned, is when Dolores said that she understood why Margaret did that. And Jennifer, watching the show back, sees that. Sorry guys, my allergies are still giving me fits. At one point, Dolores asked Jennifer if her marriage is really good. And Jennifer says that it was until Margaret brought up the affair. And they were going back and forth, and Dolores said, well, is your marriage good or is it not good? And Jennifer said, yes, it's good. And she said, then act like it is. So I'm sure there's more to come on that situation in the next couple of reunion episodes. But I think that's where the feud between Dolores and Jennifer started. I think Jennifer actually saw the episode where she said she understood why Margaret did that. And I think that's what made her mad. Jackie tells Jennifer at one point that the reason that she can't keep any friendships going is because because her definition of friendship is being blindly loyal to one person and kissing their ass. Teresa goes after Margaret and said that she was out to hurt Louie and all of this. And this was the first of what I think will be many parts where Andy steps in because she's steadily blaming Dolores for Margaret for all of this stuff coming out. And Andy says, Teresa, it was out there before Margaret ever said anything. If you remember last season on the reunion, I asked you about the rumors that were swirling on social media. And they put up a couple of things from his ex-girlfriends and stuff. And he said, so it was out there regardless of whether Margaret said anything about it or not. So to me, it was Andy checking Teresa and saying, hey, this isn't Margaret's fault. This is Lori's fault. So that was the first time that I feel like he checked Teresa. And we'll get into the other one in a minute. He says that there were articles about Louis, and I asked you about it the last reunion. Andy had a point. I had forgotten all about that. But on the last reunion, Andy did ask Teresa about it. And that's when they were newly dating. So, he asked Teresa again about the prenup. And she says that she doesn't feel like it's anybody's business but hers and Louis. And that she doesn't think anyone else should be speaking on it. And Margaret says something about, you're getting upset because people care about you. She tells Margaret to F off, calls her a bitch. And Andy said, wait a minute. He said, this is me talking to you as a friend. He's like, you need a prenup, Teresa. And she said, well, I don't really feel like I do because he has more money than I do. And she said, and Andy said, yeah, but things happen. Yeah, like all these lawsuits. Kim D was actually talking on one of the podcasts the other day. I think his name is David Yontsev. And she said that she has a friend that works for the federal department and that there's something big coming down the federal line and that it's going to make the stuff that Teresa and Joe Giudice went through look like child's play. That is allegedly. We will see if anything else comes out. But from what I gathered, the way she was speaking is that there's some kind of federal investigation on Louis. And if that's the case, he may be losing his money. But I watch Up and Adam a lot. And him and Zach's recaps. And like he said today on his thing, he said, if Zach and I get married and I have $5 million and Zach has $10 million and we combine that money once we get married and someone sues Zach for $10 million and wins, then we're down to my 5. Which is absolutely what could happen. Teresa is a freaking moron if she does not get a prenup. Regardless of who has more money. That's my personal opinion. Andy brought up Teresa's engagement party and asked who all was there. Come to find out, the only one of the cast members that was at her engagement party was Jennifer and Melissa. Melissa, I can see, she's her sister-in-law. She kind of got to invite her. But Dolores wasn't invited. Someone who has been your friend since childhood. Your ride or die. And Teresa's excuse was, well, we don't go out as couples. We only invited the people to the engagement party that we go out with as couples. So because Dolores doesn't have a man at the time, then she's cast to the wayside. I thought that was very, very odd. And then Melissa brought up that Teresa doesn't give a crap about family and coming together, or she wouldn't have set her and her brother at a different table. So evidently, Joe, Melissa, and their kids were set at a different table than Teresa and Louie and Teresa's family. And I was like, okay, this gives me strong vibes of isolation. Anybody who has a voice, if you've ever dated someone that's very controlling, and I have in the past, and I have friends that have, if they are up to no good, if their intentions aren't good, they start isolating you from the people who love you the most. They cause problems so that you don't go around that person anymore. This is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a world where, other than filming, Louie will cut Teresa off from everyone that she has anything to do with. Anyone that's going to balk him or ask questions or anything like that. Now, Jennifer, no, because she's so far up Teresa's ass, she ought to be part of her. But I see, and I may be wrong, but I see some isolation tactics starting, which is a sign of a narcissist controlling relationship. Let's see, what else do we have? Then they ask about Melissa not being in the wedding. And Teresa said, I haven't changed my mind. She's not in the wedding. And Andy asked Melissa how she felt about it. And Melissa said, at first, I didn't have a problem with it, because I thought that, her daughter, she has 4 daughters, so I thought her daughters would be her bridesmaids. So I didn't really get offended or taken aback by that until I found out that her new sister-in-laws, Louie's sisters, are in the wedding. But Melissa's not. That hurt Melissa. And Melissa says, if that's how you feel, then that's fine. But Teresa kept saying, well, we're not close. We're not close. And Melissa said, that's fine. If that's the way you feel, but let's stop pretending that we're close and that we're family if we're not, just for the cameras. So if we're not close, let's just stop faking it. Which told me volumes of how Melissa actually feels. And I think that this may be the very thing that finally comes in between Joe and Teresa. And of course, Jennifer has to step in. And Jennifer has to say, well, I think what the whole problem, and hear me out because I have some insight into this. I think what the whole problem is, Melissa, is that Teresa feels like you're closer to Margaret than you are to her. First of all, this is a conversation between 2 sister-in-laws. They're family. I don't think they need Jennifer's opinion in there. I think Jennifer needs to stay in her lane. Handle her own problems. Stay out of Melissa's. That's my personal opinion. Teresa says it's about her and Louie and nobody else. And Melissa says, no, it's about you, Louie, and Louie's family. And I guess that's why you sat us at another table at the engagement party. So that's when that came up. They went back and forth on that. Teresa kept saying she didn't have anything to do with the seating. She didn't know. And they're like, you didn't see your brother and sister-in-law and their children sitting at a different table than you and Louis' family? You could have rectified that situation. But she didn't try to. So it's kind of like, you're cast aside. They bring Joe out. And Joe feels very disrespected because of the way that Louis and Teresa have treated Melissa. He's like, that's my wife. You know, they are treating my wife like crap, and I'm not going to have it. If I treated Louis like crap, Teresa would have a fit. And they go back and forth. Teresa tells Joe that Melissa controls everything that they do. Like, have you met your brother? Melissa doesn't control nothing. Joe's the one that controls what goes on in the house. My first thought was, really, have you met your brother? And then she tells Melissa that Joe is all the family she has left and that she needs to keep the peace. So Teresa's telling Melissa, Joe's the only family I have left and you need to do what you can to keep the peace. But you just invited them to your engagement party where you outcasted them. You're not allowing her to be in your wedding, but yet Louis' sisters are. You talk about her constantly. But yet she needs to keep the peace. Why isn't Teresa trying to keep the peace? Because it doesn't benefit Teresa. Because Teresa gets what Teresa wants. We all know this. And you know, maybe if Teresa wasn't treating Melissa like crap, Melissa might be trying to keep the peace. But think about it. Joe's mom and dad are gone. There's nobody forcing that relationship anymore. And honestly, if I was Joe and Melissa, I'd be like, bye, peace out. Andy asked a question from one of the viewers, and it was like, Teresa, you're always talking about how Joe and Melissa don't have your back, and family, family, family. And can you name one time that you've had Melissa's back? And Teresa's like, y'all help me out here. I'm sure there's got to be some time that I've had Melissa's back. About that time they had the power outage. And everything went black. And you could hear Jackie say, well, I guess that's Margaret's fault too. Right before they went to break. I thought that was very funny. So they come back from break, and Teresa's still trying to figure out when she's actually ever had Melissa's back. And she says that she had her back with Jennifer by telling Jennifer that she needed to make nice with her sister-in-law because that was her sister-in-law, which she did, but that wasn't, to me, that wasn't having Melissa's back. She's never had Melissa's back. They talk about the whole Melania and Gia and the way they talk to Joe and everything. And they basically, Joe and Melissa said, you know, no matter what's going on, our kids would never speak to an adult that way. And they had a point. Joe Giudice is constantly on Twitter putting stuff out about Joe and putting stuff out about Melissa. But they're supposed to be okay with that? Their kids see that stuff. They're on the internet. Their kids aren't pissed off at Joe Giudice or Teresa for all of the crap that they've done to Melissa. Because you know what? They stay out of the grown-ups' business. And yes, Gia may be 21, but she needs to stay out of the grown-ups' business. None of these housewives are going to go to bat with Gia. They're not going to fight with Gia. It's a very uncomfortable situation. And for her to be able to have the spotlight, to be a little brat, and know that nothing's going to get said back to her, is ridiculous. Teresa says that Joe's too involved with everything, and Andy stands up for him. This is the second time that I feel like Andy checked Teresa, because she tells Joe, you're always involved in the housewife stuff, you're too involved, and you don't even need to be here. And Andy said, wait a minute, he's here because I asked him to be here. And he's just as much a part of this show as everyone else. And we love Joe. And we love that he's involved. And we don't want him to go anywhere. So I feel like that was the second time that he checked Teresa. We'll see if there's more throughout the show. But my first impression of last night is that Andy is sick of Teresa and her ridiculous attitude and accusations, and she's getting too big for her britches. And we all know what happens on Bravo when that happens. When you start getting too big for your britches and you believe the show can't go on without you, the show goes on without you. So I know on one talk show, Melissa said, I don't even know why Teresa's filming anymore. She doesn't want to film. She doesn't want to film with Margaret. She doesn't want to film with Jackie. She doesn't want to film with Melissa. She doesn't want to film with anybody. She's irritated to be there. She comes in as a hot mess and looking for a fight because she doesn't want to be there. Well, if Louis makes so much money and you don't have to work, stay home. Don't work. But you know what? Teresa's not going to do that because Teresa's ego. Because Teresa was asked how long she was planning on staying on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. And she said as long as this show is going on. She also tells Joe that he's like a housewife and that he ought to be a housewife. At one point, Jennifer calls Joe a little bitch boy, and he's like waving her off like, go on. And she's like, how dare you? You just air slap me. Really, Jennifer? He didn't air slap you. He dismissed you. Because he should have dismissed you because you were in somebody else's business. Anyway, I digress. I can't stand Jennifer. So anyway, so Jennifer calls him a little bitch girl. And at that point, Teresa, he says, so you're going to let her sit there and you're going to let her do that, and that's your friend and you're not calling her all that and I'm your brother. And she says, well, honestly, Joe, you are a little bitch boy. Joe felt very disrespected. He gets up, he storms off, he says, you know what, I quit, y'all can have this mess, I'm done. And as he's walking off, he's hollering to Teresa, turns around and tells Teresa, you know what, maybe once you should just be a sister, you how did he put it, stupid moron? Yeah, I think that's what he said, I didn't write it down, I think he called her a stupid moron. Or an effing moron or something like that. Joe says, he says, quit putting me down before he walks off stage. And Melissa said, you're so quick to always put your brother down, but yet you want your brother to have your back. And so, as always, it's Teresa's way or the highway. Teresa thinks you should be loyal to her, but she doesn't have to be loyal to you. We'll see what the next 2 nights of the reunion bring. Teresa's double standards are just, it's like, make this make sense. Nothing is ever any good unless it's Teresa's idea. And Teresa can do something to you and you can turn around 30 seconds later and do the same thing back to her. And she's going to be, you're so disloyal. You just did the same thing. Her and Margaret went back and forth the whole time. She called Margaret a effing bitch at one point. And Margaret's just like, okay. Margaret really didn't light into Teresa. She did say, I don't know why you're mad at me. All I did was ask a question. But we all know Teresa doesn't like questions. So we'll see. It's also been rumored that Jackie is being demoted and that she is going to be a friend of the show. Or she's been offered to be a friend of the show versus being a full-time on the show. I honestly don't understand that because she does have a storyline now. She had one last year as far as the Evan cheating rumor and all that. She's talking about her anorexia, her eating disorder. I mean, honestly, if you're going based off of the season, Dolores didn't have a storyline at all. Melissa didn't have a storyline at all other than fighting with Teresa. Margaret didn't have a storyline other than fighting with Teresa and Jennifer. I just don't understand why they would do that. But I'm not a Bravo exec, so I don't know. Supposedly there's 3 new housewives coming on next year. So I don't want to just tell you what I think. I want to know what you think too. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the first night of the reunion. And what you hope to see happen at the next part of the reunion. What do you think about Teresa? What do you think about the status of Jackie going to part-time? Dolores and Jennifer feuding. The whole Gia ordeal. Let me know in the comments what you think. And that's about all I have for you guys tonight. And as always, much love.